Good morning and welcome to the new edition covering Frontiers of Knowledge of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We find in this world the disease, the sickness is a major issue. And the infant mortality, the death of the children, is the most horrible thing. And yet, in many countries, infant mortality is increasing. Not only the infant mortality, but many times the fatal diseases which affect fetus before the child is born is something of a shock to the mother and to the family. And not only that, many times the diseases are in our genes, and that makes life not worth living many times. But here comes the ray of hope. As they say, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The researchers and the scientists at the University of Pennsylvania and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia have done a marvelous job. They have developed a genome editing technique. And the genome editing technique is such that it can treat potentially fatal diseases when the child is still in the womb, before the child is born. They use a technique which they call base editing. And they have done it with mice. What they did was they adjusted only the mutated genetic material that can lead to a liver failure. And then, in this experiment, they spare the healthy DNA from unintended side effects of such treatment. So they selected that part which was diseased, they edited it, and that editing helped the fetus, the child in the womb, to be cured, with the result that he will lead a healthy life. And this research has a potential of one day giving the doctors, in very near future, maybe in 4 years or 3 years, a highly precise way to treat the child in the womb of ailments that can turn fatal if addressed after birth. So this is one major step, one more major step towards having a healthy life, free of disease, free of ailments. And then once we are talking of healthy life, we find that we are often confused. We forget things. We want to commit something to our memory and we can't. It's a major problem. Earlier, when we used to write with a pen and paper, the process of writing on a paper with the help of a pen or a pencil coordinated our hand, our eyes, and the result was that the memory retained it, the brain retained it. Not any longer. When we are typing on a keyboard, it does not coordinate the hand movement and the vision. So again, the scientists come to our research. You want to commit something to the memory? Change the fonts on your computer. The researchers at RMIT University in Australia have developed a new font. And that font intentionally challenges you to read with slants and gaps, thereby helping the readers retain the information they have been consuming. So when you are typing, then there's a slant and there's a gap. You go back to it so you remember it. And do you know, this new font which they have developed is called Sans Forgetica. Sans is without forgetting. So you can type out anything and you won't forget it as much as you do know. Basically, they have used a concept called desirable difficulty. What is desirable difficulty? When the thing is very easy, you ignore it. But the idea that a minor mental obstacle forces the brain to pause and then digest knowledge. This process of digestion, which was normal when we used to write with pen and pencil on a paper or on a slate, was normal. But now since it's not normal, so they have come up with this font. I repeat, sans forgetica. The trick goes only so far though. Slowly and steadily, these slants and the gaps would become a matter of habit. In the beginning, it's going to be a bit difficult to use this font, but the purpose is to make it, as I said earlier, desirable difficulty. They create a desirable difficulty so that you can not easily forget. And now we come to a different sort of a frontier of knowledge. Let's analyze how do the people lie? And do you know, if you are a bilingual or a trilingual, if you are talking in your native language, in your mother tongue, what we call it, then you are hesitant to lie. But when you are talking in a second language, then you can easily lie. And there's a more tendency to lie when you are talking in a language which you have adopted, which you are not using at home. When I say adopted, I want to differentiate very clearly. The language spoken at home we'll call the first language. And the language used in the social setting we'll call it the second language. Now, let's not forget that when you're speaking in your native tongue, your first language, your purpose is to be understood. Language is fundamental to good communication. And as a matter of fact, in any language and a statement that is objectively true should be considered true, whether you present to you in English, Chinese, Arabic, Hindi, Urdu, Spanish, whatever. However, the perception of truth is very slippery. You remember I once said, quoted Aldous Huxley, who said, the pilot would ask what is truth and would not stay for the answer because it is so perpetually changing. You know, people who say that truth is something permanent, something eternal, are not correct. Truth is ever changing. And the perception of truth is very slippery, especially when you view through the prism of different languages and cultures. So much so that the people who speak two languages can accept a fact in one of their own language while they deny the other. You see, bilingual people often report that they feel different when switching from one language to another. Let's take an example. Let's take a person who speaks, say, Urdu or Hindi informally at home with a family, in the coffee shop, while watching a movie and things like that. But the moment you are in a more structured professional circle, then you use English. So the contextual change of language is not simply superficial. It goes hand in hand, basically, with a host of perceptual, perpetual emotional trends. And the language is linked to the experience shaped in the way we process information. Now, talking about that you speak Urdu or Hindi at home and speak English, you can easily say to a girl, I want to kiss you. And it would be taken as a normal thing. But the same thing in Hindi or Urdu, and then either you or the girl would have a sense of peculiar emotion, which can be amalgam of shame, modesty, or audacity, rudeness. It is because the cultural change is coming. So when a person is telling a lie, it's easier for the person to tell a lie in the second language than in the first language. And as a matter of fact, many experiments in psychology have been conducted which show that the languages shape the aspects of our visual perception, the way we categorize objects in our environment, and even in the way we perceive events. Language also shape our higher level knowledge, relative concepts and knowledge. It was commonly thought that one's understanding of meaning is shared equally in one language. No, it's not that. Bilingual people, the people who talk in two languages, interpret facts differently. They interpret facts in the context of the cultural background. The sentences, if you are considering, would be different. And that's why we find that the people who are bilingual show a bias towards categorizing what is true in a different manner when the same people would categorize the same fact in their own language. What happens really is that the language interacts with emotions to trigger our symmetric effect on interpretation of facts. So, the native language is more closely tied to our emotions. But the second language doesn't have that emotional ties. Perhaps that is because of the greater honesty, but the second language is always associated with distant rational thinking. So the native language is more emotional, more personal. The second language is more rational, more distant. So when you are rationalizing a thing, you can tell lie with less of a shame than when you're talking in your own language. Make no mistake. You are aware when you are telling a lie, whether it's right or wrong, because your brain is registering it. But when you're presenting it, your face retains a certain mask which covers the emotion, and you cannot be caught that easily. I don't mean to say that when next time you want to tell a lie, talk in a language which is not your native language. But I just want you to tell you that in case somebody lies to you, just observe in which language he is talking. Does he switch from the native language to the second language or not? If normally what you would see is that you are talking in one language and all of a sudden you want to tell lie and you shift to the second language. This instant shifting is a clear sign that the guy has something to hide. So this research shows a psychological attitude, which may be right, may not be right, but that's a fact. And the more languages you know, the better it is for you to be able to hide your emotions at all, which nobody will understand. So this new development in psychology and the new development, the discovery or the invention of a new font, Sa Forgetica, do not forget, will make your and editing of the disease before the birth. That's the best thing. That takes the cake, basically. But the frontiers of knowledge are endless. And every day we see new advances. The frontiers are always expanding, always expanding. And that's our purpose, to share with you some advances here every week. Thank you.